In the Buddhist tradition, when one is either listening to the teachings of the Dharma or contemplating on the meanings of teachings heard or practicing them, in all situations, previous to such should be preceded by taking refuge in the precious objects of the refuge, the precious three jewels. At the same time, when one is involved in the hearing and contemplating and practicing the Dharma, that it should be preceded by the benevolent motivation of generating bodhicitta. That is, one is going to hear, contemplate, practice for the benefit of all beings without exception, for their complete liberation. Having thus recited the prayers of refuge in the generation of bodhicitta, we will spend short time meditating on the intent and the meaning of such. Regarding one's mental approach in listening and practicing the Dharma, as well as the physical or the verbal conduct or disposition, a great deal has been said or explained in the sutras and tantras. And all of that is being pointed out could be could fall into four key points, elements, and as such, one's approach to the receiving and practicing of the Dharma should be this way. Considering or thinking of oneself as a patient, one who is afflicted with by whatever illness, and the teacher who, as the physician, an expert physician, and the Dharma as the treatment, the medication, and the application of the treatment as the practice. So in this way, oneself as a patient in the sense of experiencing the various kinds of confusion and the conflict of the cyclic existence. And in order to understand one's confusion and become liberated from such sufferings, relying on the guidance of a teacher of the Dharma, just as a patient would relate to a physician, and then relating to the Dharma as the treatment, as a patient relates to the medicine as the treatment, to become free of the confusion of mind, the Dharma. And having received the treatment, one must apply it so that one could experience freedom from the illness. In the same way, applying the instruction of the teachings so that one could become free from the limitations of sufferings and confusion. So such should be one's approach towards the Dharma. For one's learning and the practice of the Dharma to be effective, one should have this mental approach that the master from whom one is receiving the teaching to one is the very embodiment of the enlightened activities of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Thus the qualities of the enlightened activities of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas coming through to one from the very being of the teacher. At the same time, in order for one's learning and the practice of the Dharma to be effective, that all such involvement should be preceded by the activities connected with purification of defilements and accumulation of merit. And in that regard, one should engage in making the sevenfold offerings for purification and accumulation of merit. As such, one should therefore generate the attitude, one's body, among the sevenfold offerings, the first one being one's body emanating in manifolds or great many in numbers, all of these great many bodies of one expressing homage and offering prostrations to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas everywhere. Secondly, with all these innumerable emanation bodies oneself, making offerings to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all worthy objects of offerings, actual and imagined. And thirdly, in the presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, having a genuine attitude of the repentance of all one's negative actions of past. And the fourth being rejoicing, having a genuine attitude of rejoicing in the virtuous and wholesome actions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and that of ordinary beings. And the fifth one, requesting the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, enlightened ones, not to pass away or enter into parinirvana, but to remain with beings. And the sixth one is requesting the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to turn the will of the teachings, rather the fifth one is to turn the will of the teachings, and the sixth one not to pass away. And the seventh one, whatever virtue or merit is accumulated from making the six offerings, this virtue one dedicates so that for the benefit of sentient beings, that one's studying, contemplating and the practicing of the Dharma becomes fulfilling and free of faults. And so, in this way, contemplate on making the sevenfold offerings. In receiving the teachings, one should have the attitude of making offerings of one's body, speech and mind, all one's possessions, and whatever virtue one has accumulated, and therefore actual as well as imagined worthy objects of offerings in the form of a vast offering of mandala as a symbol of the request for the teachings, and at the same time one should have the sincere attitude of requesting the teacher of the Dharma to turn the wheel of the precious teaching or to instruct one into the Dharma. So while we say the words for the mandala offerings as well as requesting for the teachings, we will generate the motivation, attitude accordingly. Generally in the world, we may put people in two different classes. Those who associate themselves with some form of spiritual or religious beliefs, faith, and those who do not associate themselves with any form of religious beliefs or faith at all. So there's these two classifications. Among those who associate themselves with some form of religious or spiritual beliefs, while there are all kinds of differences in the manners and beliefs and so forth, as far as their spiritual associations go, yet largely speaking, those who associate with some form of spiritual beliefs also can be classified into two groups. Very generally or roughly speaking, there's one class who do not believe in the idea of rebirth or reincarnation, future lives, and also at the same time believe, be it outer material world, inner sentient beings within the world, are created, are the product of some kind of creator, created by some superior, supreme being, and so therefore the appearance of the world and beings as a result of creation. Whereas on the other hand, the other large class of people have this belief that there is rebirth, reincarnation, and the way the world has become manifest and sentient beings within it is a result of their own particular karma, or created by personal karmas of beings. Spiritual traditions that exist in the world, mainly people follow the spiritual beliefs that is set out by the founder of whatever spiritual tradition. The particular founder of a spiritual tradition has laid out certain points of view in connection with that spiritual tradition, laid out certain examples, and a certain set of references to follow. So mainly people go by the beliefs that have been set out by the founder of the spiritual tradition. As such, in the case of Buddhists, we basically follow the view of the Buddha, the example that has been set out by the Buddha. In accordance with the view and the example, the teachings that have been set out by the Buddha is from beginningless times until now, while there has been the relative happenings of births and death, yet the mental continuum is unchanging. The continuity of the mind unchanging. And as far as people's experiences is concerned, as far as the world and personal experience is the very result of the positive karma, the negative karma accumulated by individuals, and not as a result of some external being's creation. So that beings are responsible for their own creations. And so virtuous actions resulting into whatever experiences of happiness and well-being, non-virtuous activities resulting into whatever experiences of suffering and confusion. As such, within this lifetime, whatever in the way of goodness and well-being that we are experiencing as individuals is definitely the result of previous virtuous action or good karma. And whatever sufferings and negativities that we are experiencing within this lifetime is the result of previous unwholesome actions. And the same thing holds true as far as future birth, and the quality of future birth in terms of wholesome experiences or unwholesome experiences is determined by our present actions, be they virtuous or non-virtuous. And so in this way, those who follow the teaching of the Buddha, this is basically the Buddha's point of view. In the Buddhist tradition, we believe in the concept of karma, truth, cause and effect, and reincarnation. The notion of the concept of karma and reincarnation is not easy to understand because of its unobviousness or because of its subtleties. That so much of it is sort of hidden from being very obvious to us. And our approach, therefore, in believing in the concept of karma and reincarnation is, firstly, we rely on as Buddhists, we rely on the truth of the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha has pointed out in the teaching the existence of karma, the existence of rebirth. So, as followers of the teachings of the Buddha, we believe in the possibilities of such realities. So therefore, believing by the power of faith. But we do not go just by faith alone. We make other approaches. Through our studying the teachings of the Buddha and through using our mind, then we begin to probe into the truth of cause and effect, karma, and the truth of reincarnation. And when we study and look into the possibilities, it becomes clearer and clearer. There is more possibility that there is reincarnation, that there is future birth, and less possibility of the opposite. At the same time, when we look into the truth of karma, or cause and effect, in the world, that common sense of our mind also tells us that the world operates from the point of view of cause resulting into a certain effect. There is a cause and effect taking place. And at the same time, that it is also more beneficial and healthier to believe in the truth of cause and effect. And the way the world is operating, if there is a situation where people believe in the truth of cause and effect and accordingly take responsibilities for the truth of cause and effect, there is a possibility of greater benefit, greater harmony. On the other hand, if people do not consider the truth of cause and effect, or rather don't believe in it, that this would result into more harm and more disturbance in the world. So both from the point of benefit and harm, as well as from the point of view of the actual truth of what really is taking place or not, then there seems to be more truth in believing in cause and effect, or karma, than believing the opposite. Then there seems to be some very obvious problems, because if everything, outer material world, inner beings, are created by some powerful, all-powerful being, then there is so much disparity and imbalance in terms of some so far well off and others the opposite. And so the all-powerfulness of the Creator is questionable. And then if it is said that those who are experiencing their sufferings or whatever difficulties, if this is to be thought of as some form of punishment by the all-powerful Creator, then this all-powerful Creator, who is attributed with the qualities of all-powerfulness and compassion, there seems to be no compassion. There seems to be rather attachment to create some better and aversion to create some much worse off. Because the beings who are subject to whatever limitations and create whatever unwholesomeness do not have a choice. They do not have any power. They are just simply created. They do not have a power. And to punish the powerless would be a sign of lack of compassion on the part of the one who is creating or has created them. So from that point of view, that it doesn't seem to hold also much of truth. At the same time, then individuals themselves obviously fall into a situation of complete helplessness. Since they are totally dependent on somebody's creation, there's nothing that they can do. They have the capabilities to do their own. So they have to constantly wait at the mercy of somebody to make it better for them. Going by the Buddhist point of view, Buddhists take the position of believing in the truth of cause and effect, karma, that is, be it outer world or inner beings, is a result of beings' karma, and not as a result of the activities of some external creator. Taking that Buddhist belief of believing in the truth of karma, firstly gives one if one is, for instance, going through sufferings, difficulties right now in this lifetime, one begins to have this understanding that is, one is responsible for this experience of suffering, this experience of difficulties that has been itself created, and that one doesn't have really anybody to put it on or to blame for it. And at the same time, since one recognizes this experience of sufferings and difficulties as a result of one's previous karma, one has now within this lifetime, with that understanding, the chance, the opportunity, or the responsibility to be more careful and make it better for next time, since it is nobody else is doing or to be blamed to. So one must make due necessary changes to make it better for the future. So there is this one important element. And then along with that, if one understands or appreciates, because of the truth of cause and effect, that one is responsible for the qualities of one's future, be it positive, negative, obviously it could give one much more confidence that one has an important sort of say in this situation. One can make a difference. So therefore, this could be a reason for developing confidence to be able to make an important difference in the future qualities of one's life. So there are these important elements to consider. If we go further into the truth of cause and effect and rebirth, yes, the subject is definitely profound and subtle. We might be able to ask many questions and have many questions answered at the same time, that we're not able to answer many questions and many questions remain unanswered. Whatever may be the situation, weighing the pros and cons at least should give us the sense that it is more in our favor to appreciate the truth of cause and effect and rebirth, and more favorable than to choose otherwise. The primary focus of our seminar here is a more practical one, in that the primary focus is on the understanding and practice of meditation. So we are not going on a broad theoretical aspect in terms of explaining the various aspects of the Buddhist teachings and philosophies and so forth. So our focus is on the practice of meditation. Even in the case of the meditation practice also, Rinpoche is considering using as few words as possible to point out the essential points and the meaning. One is because we have generally short time together, and the other is also having to go through 3 languages of Tibetan, French and English, and makes our time together shorter. So, and also to try to make simple yet sort of profound effect on our understanding. So Rinpoche is considering sort of choosing the word well and presenting the essential elements. And he has the feeling that most of you will appreciate it, understand it, having been exposed to Buddhist teachings for a number of years, and exposed to various different teachers, so having a sort of foundational understanding of Buddhist teachings, you should be able to appreciate it. So our focus is going to be this way. Nevertheless, certain fundamental general points of the Buddhist teaching needs to be pointed out and should be understood, as Rinpoche has done this morning, in connection with the concept of rebirth and karma, how that is relevant, and the limitations of having views otherwise. And so, following in that line, Rinpoche right now also wants to provide you with a very essential outline of the Buddhist body of the Buddhist teachings as a framework for our primary focus of meditation practice. The Buddhist teaching, whether it's presented from the point of view of the 3 vehicles of the 3 yanas, or from the point of view of the vast body of sutra and tantra teachings, essentially all of the teachings can be placed into 3 stages or three phases. The phase of the stage of the ground, path, and fruition. Ground in the sense of the world as it is existing. The ground is samsara as it is existing. And the path is from the moment that one has entered the Buddhist path of taking refuge in the three jewels, from that moment onward until the experience of Buddhahood, complete enlightenment, that whole phase or stage is referred to as path. And having established into the state of perfect Buddhahood, then with bodies of emanation and with the perfect wisdom manifesting all kinds of enlightened activities or Buddha activities as the result. And so in this way, falling into the three ground or basis, meaning the world of appearance, the samsaric world of appearance as we perceive them, as we experience them. And with the world of appearance that we experience or we see with our eyes, and then as well as the emotions of mind that we experience, be it of pain or joy, whatever emotions we experience, just as the appearance of world is happening, this is referred to as the ground. And this ground has the characteristics or the elements of, for instance, if on an empty stomach there is the experience of truth of hunger, and then upon taking food there is the experience of being full or a plate. And in the case of illness, when the treatment is taken, the treatment has effect, the truth of effect of the treatment. Certain seed, when sown, produces some kind of fruit, and there is the truth of seed resulting into some kind of fruit. So this is the way the world is manifesting, the world of appearance. The world of appearance is manifesting. This is the way the world of appearance is experienced by us. Understanding this particular way the world is operating and believing in the cause and effect that is taking place, if we believe in this, then that is referred to as understanding of the relative truth that is happening relatively. The reason for being lost in the confusion of samsara is not understanding or not having understood the truth of the relative appearance of samsara, of the world, and ultimate nature of the world of appearance. For instance, the majority of the people or the beings have a tendency to believe that the world of appearance, as we experience, as we perceive, is permanent. That it holds the truth of materiality, that it holds the truth of substantiality, so that it is true, permanent, and substantial, possessing of definite self-entities. So clinging to that idea, failing to understand their relative existence. And when there is this kind of fixation, this prevents individuals from understanding and appreciating their fundamental nature of emptiness. Then on the other hand, if some people tend to have some kind of sensitivity towards maybe their nature, possibilities of their nature being emptiness, something empty and non-existing about their nature. But when the understanding is not complete, then with this idea of emptiness, along with it also goes the belief that because of the emptiness, maybe there is no cause and no effect, then leaning towards emptiness, sacrificing the truth of cause and effect. And so then, again, preventing themselves understanding the relative truth, the truth of relativity. So in this way, that there's a possibility of not having complete understanding of the ground. So then, what is the fundamental or essential nature of the ground? The essential nature of the ground is the world of appearance, which is relative. The very nature of the world of appearance is absolute. Nature of the appearance is absolute. And the appearance of the very nature is the relative. Which is another way of saying that the absolute and the relative are inseparable. Fundamentally inseparable. And while it is relative, its nature is absolute, and the nature, absolute nature, relatively manifest in the form of the world of appearance. If one were thus to pose the question that in the case of someone who has understanding or realization of the inseparability of the two truths, how does that person perceive the world? Or what is his or her impression? Then in the case of such a person, his or her impression of the way the world is perceived is that the world of appearance exists as much as dependent arising of phenomena allows it to exist. Their existence is totally dependent on the relative arising of phenomena. As much as that there is a truth. That is not to say that is the absolute truth. Only that things manage to exist in appearance so much depending on interdependent arising, having at the same time complete confidence in the fundamentally lacking the truth of existent nature. So having confidence in the emptiness of fundamentally lacking the truth of existent nature, yet at the same time not at all denying the sort of the feeble existence of the dependent arising. So this would be the impression or the understanding of someone who has the understanding of the inseparability of the two truths. If we ask the question as to what is the benefit, what would be the benefit of having a complete understanding of the inseparability of the truth, the two truths, that essentially there are two important benefits. The first one is the very root cause of all of our sufferings, all of our confusion is believing in the truth of the self-entity of world, phenomena, this ego fixation, clinging. As a result of that, the sufferings. So, having the understanding of the emptiness nature, fundamentally non-existing nature of appearance, would free us from this fixation to the illusion of reality and the shaking the very root of the causes of our sufferings, for one. And the other benefit is, while appreciating the fundamental nature of world, of phenomena, yet there is nevertheless the truth of dependent arising, the truth of relative cause and effect, respecting and recognizing the conventional truth or the relative dependent truth, and regarding that we present ourselves as sort of a considerate member of world society, as long as we exist within the context of the relative operation, a conventional operation, that we abide by the truth of the dependent arising. Because if our common sense does not allow us to appreciate how to confirm with a relative reality, then we would be such an odd being in a society that lives by the rules of the relative reality. So in that sense, that the understanding of dependent arising is also a tremendous source of benefit. Forward to the phase of the stage of the path, then we carry that understanding of the nature of grounds, of basics. So in connection with the path, then we approach it from the point of view of the joining of skillful means and wisdom. Skillful means from the point of view of the truth of relative truth, relatively existing truth of dependent arising. So therefore, recognizing the importance of performing wholesome and virtuous actions, the abandoning of non-virtuous, unwholesome actions, and practicing such virtuous actions as generosity and other forms of virtuous actions. Yet at the same time, when one is engaging in these activities of skillful means, and it is joined by the wisdom that is their nature, not fixating on the fundamental, their having fundamental truth, these activities having fundamental truth. So joining the wisdom, emptiness with the application of the skillful means of wholesome actions. And Rupakaya, and the form body. And so in this way, the realization in the ground level, the inseparability of the true truth, path, inseparability of method and wisdom, and then in the fruition level, the inseparability of the two kayas. Given that one has a general understanding of the nature of the ground as being the inseparability of the two truths, and path as the inseparability of skillful means and wisdom, and the fruition of the two kayas, given that one has some general understandings. And now, as far as the way the whole thing operates, if one has sort of this visual image, the concept that the process of the ground path fruition would be something like being in a particular place like the ground, and taking a road is like the path, and getting at some other location would be the fruition. If there is sort of this kind of visual concept, then that is not relevant to what we are talking about, because that's not how it is. The nature of the ground which is the inseparability of the two truths. When we have not understood and not realized that the ground as the inseparability of the two truths, and are only perceiving the way we are perceiving the world of appearance, then at that level is referred to as the ground. And the path is the methods that will help us understand the nature of the ground that we have not understood. The nature of the ground is unchanging, but we have not understood it as such. So we apply the path or the method towards gaining understanding. But when we have, through the application of the path, gaining understanding and realization of the nature of the ground, and we have realized now, through the support of the path, the nature of the ground, and when there is this experience of self-realization takes place, that is the fruition. Fruition is realization of the nature of the ground. That one that has not understood, that one has not realized. So at the moment of the realization of the fruition, which is the nature of the ground, so that the path is disappeared. Or, from the point of view of an example, we can say that when you are on the other side of the water, the river, some form of transportation, so boat, becomes a very essential thing to be able to get on the other side of the water. But through the means of this boat or vehicle, you have gotten on the other side of the river, that's the whole point, then you have no use for a boat anymore. There's no need for a boat anymore. And so in this way, so the path, it becomes irrelevant at that stage. And so, the path, there in this way, ground, path, and fruition are not three different things. Ground as a place, and path as a road, and fruition getting somewhere. Then ultimately, the ground is the fruition when it is understood and realized. Breath, a mind to rest naturally. Obstacles you are stuck with, and accomplishments of the practice and questions, what have you. So, as you have been told previously, to write it down and then to give it to Rinpoche. It has been announced yesterday to all of you to take good care of yourselves and your things, and which is saying I took it upon myself as my responsibility to get that across to you. And which also wants to emphasize that there is some truth to it, that in sacred places, in pilgrimage spots, be it in Bodh Gaya or Benares or Kathmandu or other sacred places, yes, there are many people who are a very sincere motivation, who are very strongly spiritually inclined. At the same time, there are others who are looking into making some business out of some things. what is there to make some business out of something? Or there are others that are looking for something to do, some pick and move. And so, given these relative realities, so Rinpoche wants you to please take good care of your things, as far as your associations, try to focus on what's going on, and or might extend it by saying don't get distracted by others. And then also, since I made a strong point, which is saying the General Secretary Lama Yantana has this concern, maybe there is a slight possibility of misunderstanding. Maybe you might have read, oh, within the temple monastery complex there are these kind of people too, and sort of giving a little unhealthy impression about the temple. And so we want to make it very clear, reinstate. I'm sure you didn't take it that way, and even though I get taken that way all the time, but I'm sure you didn't take it that way. So, but it should not be misunderstood that way. We're just saying, this is a public place, coming and goings are taking place, and don't invite if you can help.
Ini